Marketing Your Private Practice is a podcast where you'll learn easy to implement tips and strategies to grow your business without spending all day online. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and I teach practitioners the Thrive marketing method to create simple and streamlined plans by focusing on long-term strategies, not just social media. Discover ways to spend less time on your marketing, attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. Hey, private practice heroes. Thanks for tuning into the podcast today. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and today we're talking about something that has the power to genuinely change how you run your practice. And I do not say that lightly. We are going deeper into your consult call data, those discovery calls that you have. In the last episode, we looked at what your data tells you about your marketing. Now, today, we're going to take it a step further into what that same data tells you about your business and your practice. And that is going to help guide you with your decision making. Because once you start tracking this data, which we covered in episodes 179 and 180, and so if you haven't grabbed the free tracker yet, the link is in the show notes where you can download that and use it for your own business. The next step is knowing how to read the information and the data you've collected in the tracker. And what I want you to understand from today is that this data tells you a real story, a real accurate story about what is working and what is not, and where your practice needs attention. It's not about what you think is happening or what you feel is happening. It is going to tell you what is really happening. The numbers don't lie. And by the end of this episode, you're going to be able to look at your consult data in a completely different way and know how to use it to guide your business decisions. So let's dive into this here. We're going to start off talking about how you can discover who your best clients are and who's bringing in the consistent long-term revenue. This is something you can gather when you look at your consult data over time. Now, I am talking about the data you're collecting from that free tracker, and the information in there that I shared with you on what to track was about how long clients stay working with you, what service they came in for, and what problem brought them to you. When you look at this, a pattern starts to emerge. And if you're keeping track of how many appointments they have or how much revenue you made from the appointments that they had, that pattern is going to show you who is actually sustaining as a long-term client, which is going to help you understand who is bringing in consistent revenue to your practice. And this is something most practice owners don't realize until they actually look at that data. There are usually two types of clients in a practice. The ones who come in, do a session or two, and then disappear. And then there are the ones who stay and do the work and get the results and keep coming back. Both of them come through your door. Both may have looked like a good fit at that consult or discovery call stage. But when you look at the data side by side, length of stay, service type, the problem they came in for, the difference, if there is one, becomes impossible to ignore. The ones who stay longer, who follow through and get the results and do the work, are the ones that are often generating that consistent revenue and making your practice sustainable. They are probably your true ideal client. Sometimes it's not who you assumed it was. The data will show you who they truly are. And when practice owners see this pattern clearly for the first time, it changes their business decision making. It's not about making a marketing tweak. It means looking honestly at who you're building your practice around, who those ideal clients are, and making sure that everything in your business is structured to serve that person. Of course, that's assuming you do want to work with that true ideal client that you see who is working with you long term. Now, I did a whole episode on this, number 175. Are you targeting the wrong ideal client for your practice? Understanding that might help you when you're collecting this data, because once you've seen this kind of information in there and you really understand who your true ideal client is, then you're often going to be making some changes about your marketing. So I will put a link to that episode in the show notes for you. The next thing your data can tell you about is your pricing and your offer structure. And this one sometimes surprises people. But when you see the same objection showing up repeatedly in your consult notes around price or program length and commitment, reasons why people aren't signing up, that pattern is worth paying attention to. If you have a couple price objections, that's going to happen. It's normal. Everybody gets those. But when it is consistently showing up as the reason why people aren't working with you, when you look at those notes and you see this consistent reason why someone is hesitating to work with you, your data that you're reading is waving a flag. And the question you need to ask yourself is, are your pricing and your services and your packages, your offers structured in a way that fits how your true ideal clients are making decisions? Is your pricing aligned with what they can realistically commit to? Is the length of time that you're asking them to commit matching what they're ready for? I once had a client who told me her discovery calls were going great conversations, people were interested, but nobody was signing up. And when we looked at the data together, the same word kept showing up in her notes: too expensive, over and over. And that told her something about how she was structuring her offer for her services and who she was attracting to those discovery calls as well. And that kind of clarity only comes from looking at data like that. The next thing that you can glean from all of these discovery calls and the consult calls and using the free tracker that I have is if you have a good fit with your referral sources. Because this is another area where the data sometimes will tell you something you just simply cannot see without looking at it from that one-page picture view. Volume and how many referrals you're getting from someone tells you very little all on its own. But what matters is whether the people being referred to you are actually a good fit for your services. So when you look at your tracker and you see a high number of referral clients coming from one source, but it's a low conversion rate, meaning people are coming for those consults, but they're not moving forward, they're not signing up. Well, that is a fit gap, which is what I call it, that is worth looking at. Do your referral partners really understand what you do and who you help the best? Are the people they're sending you showing up ready for what you have to offer? Or are there people coming through who are just never a good fit for your services? Not because anything is wrong with them, but because what they're looking for is not what you truly have to offer. Getting 10 referrals a month sounds great from somebody, but if 8 of those people are never going to be a right fit for what you have to offer, that referral source is actually creating work for you, not clients. And your tracker data will show you that pattern. And this information is going to help you do a couple things. One, maybe you need to have a conversation with that referral partner and talk to them about what services you really offer and who is a good fit for those. Sometimes it may mean that you're just going to simply have to shift where you're investing your time in building those relationships. Because if that referral source is never going to understand or have clients that are a fit for you, you may need to move on from that person, no matter how often they're sending people to you. Understanding if you have a good referral source fit is something that your consult tracker data can tell you as well. This same data can also tell you something very important about your services, what people are asking for, and whether or not that really matches what you offer for services, and if people are following through and continuing to work with you once they do say yes. So we're looking at the type of service you offer, data on that, and no-show patterns. Because if people keep asking you, do you do XXX during consult calls, and you don't, that is a signal worth tracking. It might mean there's a demand for a service that you're not currently offering. It might mean that you have an opportunity to add a service to your business, or maybe you need to be referring those clients out. Or Third one is you simply might need to get a lot more clear in your messaging and describing what you do and what you offer. But if a service you offer is never being asked about, the question that you need to sit with here is whether or not people know it exists and whether or not the language in your marketing and your messaging that you're using to describe it is landing the way that you think it is. And here's something people often don't think about when they look at this data from the consult tracker is your no-show rate, cancellations after a consult, because that information is helpful as well. If someone books a consult and doesn't show up or cancels shortly after saying yes, something shifted after they said yes and when that appointment arrived. When this happens occasionally, and it will, it's just part of running a practice or a business. But if you're seeing it consistently, when this pattern shows up, it can often signal to you that there's a gap between what someone was expecting and what was being offered. And so understanding that is worth knowing. Your no-show rate is not just an administrative headache. It is information that can tell you, do you need to change something with your marketing? Do you need to make sure that you've got reminders so people do show up for the consults? Because if you're converting a lot of them, you want them to be on the call. But if you're going through with the consult and then they're not showing for the actual paid service, that's something as well that you need to pay attention to. And the fifth thing that your consult call tracker can tell you is something where it kind of stops being just a snapshot of what is happening right now and starts showing you where your practice could be headed. So when you look at your tracker data over time, say 3 months or 6 months or a year, and you combine those dates with service types and the volume of consults coming in, you're often going to start seeing a pattern around capacity that you simply can't see in the moment when you're having those one-off calls. And most practice owners, when they start looking at this kind of information, may not realize sometimes that they were consistently full or really booked for months before they started turning people away. If you were looking at that data, it would have told you that kind of information. And knowing that, seeing that kind of pattern before you're already stretched and full, that's what's going to help you make proactive decisions when it comes to your business or your practice. That's when you're going to have to start really thinking about, am I ready to create a wait list? Which is for some people, that's a dream question to ask yourself. But this is where you start thinking about adding capacity. Maybe it is a wait list. Maybe you need to decide, do you want to get help? You don't want to be in a place where you're already overwhelmed. You want to be making this decision before you get there. And I have a client who just hired another team member recently. And part of the decision-making came from the data that her tracker was telling her, because it was telling her it's soon going to be time for this. She could see the pattern. She wasn't guessing. The numbers showed her the demand was there. People were signing up. They're coming on consistently. They're bringing other members of her team to capacity. And that gave her the confidence to know she was going to have to make that new hire. I have another client in my Thrive coaching circle who once was looking at her data and made the complete opposite decision. She decided to start a wait list because she didn't want to hire people to help her manage the clients that were coming to her and the consults that she was having that were converting into paying clients. So it's the same tool, it's the same data, but you made a different business decision because of it. And in both cases, the decision came from seeing what those numbers were showing them, not from a gut feeling, not from what they thought was happening. Looking at that data was showing them the trend of what was going on. And for those of you in multi-clinician practices and group practices, this is where team data becomes incredibly valuable too. Your tracker can show you which practitioner specialties are filling constantly and which ones are sitting quiet. That kind of information can guide everything from how you're presenting your team online, how you're talking about people in marketing, what you're focusing on, to conversations about hiring and capacity planning. And this is where tracking goes from just being useful information you see to being genuinely business changing and helping you make those decisions. And it all comes from having enough data, because when you have that information, the decision making is often easier because you're not going on a feeling or a thought. You're going on what has actually been happening in the practice. And so that's the fifth thing that you can get from this information is details and info to help you with capacity planning. So, what are your action steps from today's lesson? Well, I really want you to keep tracking every consult call, because that data is only going to help you and work if you are consistently tracking the information. If you haven't downloaded the free tracker that I have yet, grab it now. The link to it is in the show notes wherever you're listening into the podcast here. And if you haven't set it up or are using one, go back to episodes 179 and 180. They're going to help you understand what to put in your tracker and how to gather that information. The next thing you need to do is set aside time to actually take a few minutes and read this data, not just collect it, but look at what you have and let yourself sit with it for a few minutes and try to understand what this information is telling you. And it doesn't have to be a big production. Even 15, 20 minutes with your tracker once a month can show you some important trends. And that's what you want to look for, is those trends, not one-off moments or patterns. You want to see what is continually showing up, what is appearing more than once or twice across those consult notes. Why are people not working with you? Why are they working with you? What kind of insurance are they working with? Look at all of this and ask yourself, what is this data telling me? It's probably telling you about clients who are staying with you and generating consistent revenue. It's telling you about objections for why people aren't working with you. It's telling you information about referral sources and whether or not they're sending people to you who are a good fit. It's telling you about the services people are asking you for and whether or not your no-show patterns are something to be paying attention to. There's so much information here, but you will never get anything from it if you don't do two things: take the time to track it and then take the time to review it. And looking at all of this and what I'm talking about here today, you want to be looking for, is there a message somewhere in that data? Is there something about your practice that needs to change or that you need to look at? And if there is, write it down. Make at least one observation every time. One thing those numbers are telling you that your gut feeling might have missed or that you've been avoiding looking at directly. And if you looked at your data and realized that your true client, the vision of who you have there, needs a rethinking or a re-review, go back and listen to episode 175, because that one will give you some information on really making sure that that ideal client that you want to work with that is helpful for your business or practice is the one you're trying to reach with your marketing. Your consult data can show you who your best clients are and where they come from, whether your pricing and offers are structured in a way that works, or also whether you need to make changes. It tells you if your referral sources are sending the right people and what services you have that people actually want and will commit to. There's so much insight here sitting in a spreadsheet sometimes, just waiting for you to look at it. And the numbers don't lie. They often tell a more accurate story about your practice than what you think is happening or feel is happening. And when you start making decisions from that place, from that data, the information, that's when things can really start to shift. And that's all I have for you today, folks. This is Kathy Colaiacovo signing off. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, to thrive in practice or business means using the data that helps you stop guessing what to do and start making clear, strategic decisions that will lead to more practice growth. I'll see you next time. You can find all of our show notes and resources mentioned at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at pepperitmarketing and say hi. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, and make sure to rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes.